All right, we're live. These guys just got off a solar podcast. Are you guys more bullish on Enphase now?
How can
Yeah,
you
man,
not be bullish with that guy?
that guy. That I love talking to that guy because, like, as an editor, I listen to people speaking all day. That guy is so dense with his words. It's not a lot of ums and ahs. He doesn't repeat. He directly answers the question that you're asking. He's actually a great interviewer. You can tell he speaks all the time. He's a great guy to do a podcast. He's a great guy to do presentations. You know, some people are just good orators, and some people are great at information. He's both. He's got a great knowledge of the brand, his product, how to sell it. He's a great personality. I just love speaking to the guy. Not to say anything, talk shit about the other installers we've spoken to, but him in particular, man, you get 2-3 hours worth of stuff in an hour with that guy.
Well, the difference is also his energy level is like always up. He's like ready
He's
to
got
go.
a microinverter in his ass and a couple batteries.
No, but that's important. Like, he is obviously happy with what he's doing. It's not something he does because it's just a job and a paycheck, you know?
Well, you can tell he's talking to a team of 100 people on a regular basis. He's got to be the source of energy. You know, anyone that's ever run a team, you've been a director or like AMIT, you know, you have a company, you have to have more energy than the combined energy of your team. You need, because they're going to draw from you. You just have to. So you can tell that guy is frequently, he's the energy source of his company.
Yeah, so people didn't see who are watching right now. We just had a podcast. Go to our channel of Freelancer Finance, and we had a solar installer from Australia, our second time chatting with him, and he's giving us once again the bull case for Enphase. If you didn't need it, if you needed it, I mean.
Did he say anything that was something you didn't know, or?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One thing solar in Australia, he said, is not slowing down. It's increasing. And this is going to be, his conversion rate right now is usually at 30, but right now it's 45% to convert people. Rates matter. Rates matter. But he said what's more important is that energy prices have gone through the roof. They've been raised 25% in his area, and people understand that they need to go solar. So, and the third thing I think I got away from it is that he just ordered 75,000 micros for next year. That's a lot of microinverters he's ordered.
He's doing over, he has 600 installs from between now and the beginning of January already scheduled on his calendar. That's a lot. That's a lot of solar.
And it's doubled since our talk with him a year and a half ago, right? It was like 100, I remember.
Yeah, it was 200 a month. I do about 200 a month. The average size has gone up too. And he's actually pairing more batteries with them in Australia than what we saw here because of that. Because actually he was saying that Australia can actually charge you money if you send power back to the grid at a time that it's not needed. They'll actually give you a negative energy rate. So you could actually get a charge at the end of the month for like overloading the grid. So it's interesting. He talked a little bit about Tesla as a potential threat. He talked a lot about your Hoy Miles, Chris. He's not really concerned with a lot of those companies. A lot of those off-brand microinverter companies, they might have a small niche, but I don't think they're going to be a big player.
He's not willing to risk his business, as he made that clear. It's not worth it to him.
Yeah, and
here's a question outside of just general solar. Okay, yeah. At what point are you guys searching for the bull case rather than being objective? Because I mean, for the last 6 months, I am trying to understand the sector. I love you guys, how you guys are deeply analytical about it. But is there a place in your investing that's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I am too gung-ho about this specific sector and I just am too committed to it rather than just being objective. Do you ever feel like that?
No, because I'm constantly trying to tent ban myself. And I actually believe, I've said it before and I asked him about it. I think that the only threat to Enphase right now is Tesla. That's the only legitimate threat. And he even said the same thing. He didn't give a time frame, but it could be 5 to 10 years out. By then you've got your gains. But even then, if that happens, what happens is, and what he's noticed is, as his company grows, he's actually helping other companies grow. So he still has the most massive market share in Australia, but other companies are having more success because he's growing and he can't do all the installs. So it's, in other words, even if Tesla comes in and starts to take more market share, Enphase is still going to be doing more installs. It's you know what I mean? And they're at 30% penetration. We're at like 5.
That's Australia. Yeah.
Right. So Australia, and we looked at a map of where his area is, the amount of roof space that is packed into such a small area. Because I'm like, how do you do 200 installs a month? Like 200 installs is easily a freaking zip code. How do you do that many? And he's like, well, there's a lot of fucking roof space. And he also was negative on Enphase's commercial installations. And he gave some very technical reasons why. That has to do with the way that the system is built out and the way that like a system of that size has to be monitored and throttled properly so it doesn't overload the grid once you get beyond 100 megawatts. So he gave some really good points, and he was very realistic about it, you know.
So I want to answer his question too, and you have a great question, Chris. And the thing is, every day I research basically two companies. It's Enphase and Tesla. And a little SolarEdge. I'm not going to lie. I'm literally every day. I try to find where is the weakness. How are they going to fail? How are they going to get beat? It's not just I'm just buying stock for no reason. Like even now I was buying. There's no reason I'm just throwing money down a well. Okay.
Right.
The main thesis still holds that is EV adoption real? Is solar real? Like if those numbers are correct, that's all I'm looking at for in terms of like the adoption curve. If those numbers are real, I just can't find a way that these guys don't benefit. Do you know what I'm saying? How does Tesla not benefit from more EVs being sold, even if their market share goes down? How does Enphase not benefit, even if their market share goes down, just with more solar adoption happening? I don't know the reason to that question. If you can find the reason when that doesn't happen, as the adoption curve rises to 2030, then I would believe you. But until that, I guess.
Well, I'm not arguing against your reasoning for Enphase. Sometimes I feel like being overly committed, like you just said, like you're looking at Tesla, you're looking at Enphase. I would ask you, it might be a good idea right now in this market to look for other plays as well, because what I'm seeing right now is there's a lot of opportunities that are presenting themselves in this market. And the thing is being committed. And you know what? You guys absolutely called it right early in 2020 with this company. But don't let this become the hill that you die on. Diversify a little bit into like other things. I mean, you look at right now what you did with Meta.
Right?
No, I do. I'm just saying that even when we kind of like talk about investing and stuff, we don't want to be into, and this is the same thing that I tell AMIT too. Like, don't pigeonhole yourself into just Palantir. Even though Palantir's done really well, you know. Don't pigeonhole yourself. There are a lot of great opportunities in this.
What did Buffett say? Put your eggs in one basket and watch that motherfucking basket with all your might. That's what me and VITALY are doing it with Enphase and Palantir.
Yeah. I just feel like I just want to say that, you know, I do think eventually your thesis will play out. I'm not denying that. I think that solar definitely has a place in the future, especially, you know, with where we are in terms of like cost of energy. I'm just saying that in the near term, there's a lot of opportunities presenting themselves that are much quicker in terms of recovery plays that you might want to take a look at. And we can talk about some of them too over the course of like the next 6 months, because I think right now with interest rates being where they are and they've riding so fast, they've disrupted a lot of business models. And the only thing that's going to be required for those businesses to get back to like operating at a much higher levels is going to be just very small, minute changes in interest rates. And if that happens, like you want to be in those companies because that's the return that you'll
yeah, but
like
you're naming our companies at the same time. The thing is, if I was a short-term investor and I needed my Enphase position and Tesla position to go up next year, then you might be right. There could be a better like overall bet. And I do have other bets, obviously. We talked about them. But if we're talking about the next 5 years, which I don't expect to be selling Enphase anytime soon, I don't think I'm going to be wrong in this. I think I'm going to come out way ahead out of anyone chasing any of these other stocks, even if they do better in the next year, let's say. I think the 5-year thesis that I have and the 10-year thesis that will be proved out is happening on such a large scale and global that I will not be at the end of the day, I will not lose money in this. I am not worried about that fact. Let me put it this way.
Right. Okay.
Here's another point that I want to add to that is the fact that if you watch the interview with him, okay, something that's unique to the solar plays is that the installers are the network, right? The installers are the moat. So this guy's already ordered 75,000 Enphase microinverters. They're the ones that they're the primary customer for Enphase. By the time we pay them for those microinverters, Enphase is already long gone and been paid. And so the interest rates affect us on the end in terms of them installing it, but he at that bulk pricing that he's getting such a great deal from Enphase. He has his own Enphase rep. It's a different business model than the interest rates affecting us directly. Like, they're the manufacturer. Enphase is a manufacturer, and they're dealing with those installers. And those installers, the more they install, if he's installing 600 Enphase systems between now and January, do you know, it only gets harder for them to switch to different manufacturers, because that's what you're asking them to do. It only gets harder for them to switch because they have training and they have all of this inventory. And so the longer this runs, the harder it is for another play. And we went through examples. If you watched it, we asked them about Hoy Miles and some of these other companies and Tygo. And he's like, I've spoken to them. I've spoken to the reps. The products are pretty good, but it's almost impossible to get us to switch. He goes, remember, I installed Enphase systems on my mom's house in 2018 as a test run when I had all my options available. And he's like, from safety, product, warranty, service, he's like, there's just no one that can compete. And he says, when he talked about something like Tesla is crushing them on batteries. Tesla's got a better battery. He said, there's no better battery. There's no better app. He goes, but what does that do? That keeps Enphase sharp. It lifts the entire ecosystem. So really, what my takeaway from it was, the only real competitor down the line to something like Enphase's dominance in solar would be Tesla. But that would
it's not even Solar Edge. It's not even Solar Edge.
Guys, so I want to give the last 30 seconds of VITALY, because we got to move on to like what's obviously happening in the markets. Can't talk about Enphase.
That's what we want to talk about.
We can talk about colonoscopy if you want. So last 30 seconds, VITALY, on why you're studying Enphase every day, and then let's move on. Go ahead.
Well, I don't need, I mean, look, I've invested a lot of money, probably more than anyone here, into Enphase, that I need to make sure that, look, I don't want to lose this money. I'm not saying, so
that's a solid reason. That's a solid reason.
It's not a hill you want to die on.
I'm not trying to die on any sort of solar hill. If I actually saw a clear path to saying that solar was on a decline and not this S curve that I believe it's on with EVs, if I saw a real reason pointed out by KRIS or AMIT or anybody who pointed it out, that would be great, because I would take my money out right now. I am up a lot still, by the way. I am not down. There are people who are down. It's not me. Okay. And I've sold a shit ton and bought cars and pools and everything. So I am not down. But every day I research this topic, I want to buy more of this company. The only thing that's stopping me is rationality. Because KRIS is right at the end of the day. I do have a diversified portfolio, by the way, KRIS. I do own a lot of Google. I own a lot of Amazon. I have a lot of Meta. I have dividend portfolio. I have real estate. I am very, 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 very diversified. In fact, not one position will ever cream me, by the way. Even Tesla will not cream me. It'll hurt. Yeah. Nothing will cream me. But this is where I see the future is going. Okay, so if I see this is where the future is going, what do I care if it gets there next year? That just doesn't matter, KRIS.
And honestly, we are at $16 billion right now.
No, at the end of the day, let's say I'm wrong for 3 years right now and Enphase does bupkis and shit, but in year 5, I fucking get a 10x. Do you think I give a shit I didn't catch the 30% of everything else? It won't matter. And this is the important thing people understand. The next 5 years is going to be totally different than the previous 5 years. Think of it this way. Tesla was not a real company 5 years ago. No one thought of it. Me and Carlos might have bought a few shares, but nobody believed it. 5 years from now, there's going to be massive solar adoption.
I know, but my whole thing is
we're in the S. My question, just to drill down, my question about your question is: are you saying diversify in other companies in the energy space, or diversify out of that industry, out of that?
No. My whole thing is, don't overcommit yourself to the point where you're not looking for the next Tesla, because that's what I've seen happen to a lot of good investors. And it happened to me too, where I was so hopelessly romanticized in the one position or two positions that I had, that every day I would keep fixating on that position. And instead I would miss the bigger opportunities. You know, like I missed
what's the bigger opportunity?
No, there are some right now. So like, I'll give you one right now, Crown Castle Holdings, right? Everything that I've done research on Crown Castle is probably one of the best value.
Every day he has a new fucking ticker for us. I can't take it.
I mean, hey,
no, but look, to put an end to this conversation, because we got to move on. I think
no. I want to hear about this. What happened yesterday?
No, but you guys have two different approaches. You're picking one eggs in a basket and you're watching it carefully. KRIS is looking at different baskets. That's it. No one's right.
I don't think that's true, by the way. I think I made it clear that I have like 6, 7 different things that I'm watching.
I agree. I'm just saying one of them is the biggest you care about. Like, I don't even think you want to research Royal Caribbean, VITALY, right? Because you don't give a fuck about it. That's my point. KRIS does. KRIS likes finding the hidden gem. So it's just different perspectives. That's all.
I would say this is one of those companies that is probably buy now and chill and get a really good return for the next 10 years kind of play, so like Crown Castle Holdings, maybe I'll do an entire like dedicated episode on like my channel with it, because
CCI?
there's so much stuff.
CCI. I'm looking it up.
Yeah, and there's like a whole thesis behind it, like that like you really right now there are so many companies that people are selling off, and they're not understanding why they're getting sold off. And when I look at them, and I'm just asking myself, okay, what is the business's moat? What is the total return potential? And there's a really big bull case for it. So, it's just something to think about.
All I'll say about that is, and I know that I don't have to tell you guys, we all have very little available time throughout the day. There's always something else that we could be doing. And I try to invest in things that I'm generally interested in. This is one of the reasons why I have such a big position in Tesla, why I care about Bitcoin. I'm actually interested in the technology, and I'm interested in that disruption. I'm interested in solar, right? So it makes it easier for me to dedicate my available free time. When I'm sure that there's going to be, a great multiple in something like, the cruise stocks. But for me, I just know that my conviction will not be that strong, because I'm not going to spend the time to continually keep up with that investment. So I'll invest in it, but I will invest an amount that I'm okay to lose, because I'm not going to be sitting on the news every day. Whereas with Tesla or Enphase at this point, I will continue to pump money into this. When I look at the charts and I see that these are at 2020 levels, and I know what the company's done, I will continue to pump money. And that's how they become such a large position. It's over time. Yeah. It's not like I went all in on Tesla in one shot. Just continue to get more news. Like, why don't I have more of my money in this, and continue to dump money, and then it grows into that position.
Once again, it's the Peter Lynch thing. Where do you have an advantage at the end of the day? And if I am interested, like Carlos said, we're interested in studying something daily, basically, we'll have an advantage, because a lot of people aren't. And so if you bring up CCI, I could check it out. I could look at Royal Caribbean a couple of times, but at the end of the day,
CCI is cell phone towers. It's not.
No, I know, CCL. But I'm saying the other stocks we talked about. I won't have the same conviction to do as much homework on it. So even if I make some sort of allocation to it, and I might, right? I've made allocations to some small spec bets, whatever. But I will never have enough of that thing in order to really hit escape velocity. And so my whole point in investing is that one day, even if it's 10 years from now, there's an escape velocity trajectory. And I need to hold that stock, not for 6 months. I need to hold it for a decade. So that's the problem. A lot of people think they can hold some ticker they just heard about on this podcast maybe, and they can hold that for 10 years. No, that's not going to happen. When me and you are all gone and not doing this podcast, those people are not going to be holding that ticker, because they never had the conviction. So me and Carlos have the conviction for these couple of things to keep watching, and you probably have a couple of convictions to watch as well. I'm not sure what they are exactly right now. Maybe it's Google. And Amit definitely has one for Palantir. So we need to stick with what we understand and can keep watching, because otherwise we cannot be long-term investors. It's impossible.
All right. Well, speaking of which,
and I agree with Vitaly on that point. Like, when you pick something, you actually do want to keep it for a decade. Like, yeah, you research it every day, and you should, because at the end of the day, like, we could trade in and out of positions, but long-term wealth is going to come from holding something for 5 years.
And I absolutely agree with that we should have a long-term mindset, but you have these companies that have long tails of growth behind them that have recently been sold off unjudiciously by a lot of people. And they could be the company that you want to be in for the next 10 years. They generate tremendous amount of cash flows. They have great payouts. Like, it's like this thing with Meta. There was so much time where Meta was just riding higher and higher, and the macro just, it didn't make sense to invest in Meta. And then when it dropped to $80, it was like, wait a second, how the hell is this company trading so low? That's when it was like, hey, I need to be buying more shares of Meta. Right now, if you were buying Meta at 330, you're not going to get the same return that you would have got when you got into it at the $80.
No, but isn't that Vitaly's point, that if Enphase is trading this low, it's kind of like a Meta situation where he's going deeper into why it's
no, that's fine. That's fine.
You're literally making the case. This is the time that you don't want to ignore it. Look, this is the time. Okay, at $300, but I wasn't buying one share. I didn't buy one fucking share.
Bring this up, please. Bring this up, please.
I was buying a lot of shares on the way down to this price.
Can you see where we are? Can you see where we are right now? We're at the $115 level. It's touched that. It was last there in January 2022. It was there in May of 2021. And that was the real breakout point in November of 2020. You got a chance to go back and buy it at the same price that it was in November 2020 before all the run up before these last 2 or 3 years of information, and it's never been at this price. So you're looking at like a real support here. Is it going to go much lower? Yeah, sure. It could probably get back down to these levels. Will it? Probably not. And so if you ever want to start a position, or if you want to grow your position, this is a chance to do it, especially if you did sell out at the top. I sold at the top. I sold around $300 and something. So now I'm looking to start building, accumulating that position and ride it the fuck up again.
So I want to point out, besides this end phase thing, to the Meta point. The reason I invested so heavy in Meta as it tanked, and me and Carlos had plenty of discussions about this, and even on our channel. And the reason I invested is because I believed in the vision of what Mark Zuckerberg was doing. I actually did believe it. Chris, me and you talked about it.
That's a painful statement to hear.
Whatever. I still believe in the vision.
Believe in Mark Zuckerberg's vision for the future.
Okay. Besides,
I'm supposed to be getting my delivery next.
No. But my point is, you can't dump hundreds of thousands of dollars into a company, or even whatever percent of your wealth, if you don't believe in what the people are doing at that company. Meaning, like their future aligns with what you think it's going towards. So, and I was willing to research it. I was interested in everything you talked about with Meta, right? We were talking about VR and how that's going to change everything. And so I was fully on board on that vision, which that means at $85, I thought it was a stupid deal. If that vision is even 5% true, Mark Zuckerberg has a multi-trillion-dollar company. That's what I thought. So when the company was 300 billion, but once again, I was researching all of this. It wasn't just like I went into Meta because, it was down. And in fact,
I agree.
Amit didn't go into Meta when it was down, and we were all talking about it because he didn't agree with our vision of what we saw.
Well, no, that's the point. That
all right, we got to move on. We got to move on.
All right, go ahead.
I actually want to make the segue here. I want to make the segue because a massive bear case that I had for Palantir was disproven today, and so I think you're going to want to hear this, Amit.
But is this going to be a Palantir conversation? Because I don't have a Palantir conversation. I want to have more macro around. It's still going to involve the war. We can let me set it up, and then you can do your.
Are you trying to do a whole episode about the war or something?
No. I want to ask a simple question. I want to transition us to the name of this fucking podcast, which is, are the markets ignoring a war, given the S&P went from bad in the pre-market to pretty damn good? That's it. That's all I wanted to say. So that's the open question. Is the aggression that we're seeing from both sides now get even more hostile from Israel and the counteroffensive, obviously in response to a lot of those terrorist attacks? Does the market not care? Do they not care about the gas prices, inflation? That's the open question.
The Gaza Strip is not a major influence in world markets in that way. So I don't think it's like it. I don't think it's going to have as much of an effect. And a lot of times, I'm sorry to say, like, war is good for business.
Well, I don't think the Gaza Strip matters in terms of financial markets at all. So
this is the same thing that I posted on my Patreon chat this morning. Number one, Israel is a very insular economy. So there's no real geopolitical risk in terms of like Israeli companies underperforming or outperforming and causing the entire market to kind of like shift in a different direction. So the exposure to most companies to Israel and Palestine, the conflict is very low. The other thing is the major issue that a lot of companies could possibly have is thanks to oil prices. So oil prices right now, just spiked because everyone's like, oh my God, oil, Middle East, blah, blah, blah. So that's like the knee-jerk reaction that typically you're going to see anytime you have anything happen in the Middle East, right? So the Saudis were bombing the shit out of the Houthis. It was the same conversation when ISIS came around, same conversation in Iraq, so the oil conversation is definitely something that people have to keep their eyes on. But at the same time, this is not the 1970s where the Middle East has pricing power anymore, where back in the day, when the Middle East just said, hey, we're going to launch an embargo and basically fucked over the economy and inflation just skyrocketed in the 70s. The U.S. right now, we are the largest producer of oil on the planet, and we have tons of spare capacity to pump. And there's other countries around the world that can do the same thing. So the power that the Middle East used to have in determining oil prices is sorely diminished. And a lot of it is, believe it or not, starting to thanks to Elon Musk also, because when you have a competing technology come into the market, what ends up happening is if, let's say, oil were to go to $150 and gas prices would skyrocket, that would be the biggest bullish thing for fucking Tesla tomorrow, because everyone would be shifting over to EVs. Whatever plans people had to shift over to EVs would be accelerated. Even from a national defense standpoint, people would be shifting over to EVs on every single country on the planet. So
two of my friends ordered Tesla the day that Russia invaded Ukraine because they're like, oh, fuck this. We know where this is going. Two of my friends ordered that, and that was at the higher prices. They're like, I don't care what I pay for the car now because long term there's going to be a lot of pain.
So you don't think the tensions are going to have that big of an impact on inflation or oil writ large?
The Saudis were told very clearly by I'll share the interview by seeing that,
and the Saudis cut off Israel today. Did you hear that?
No, that's true. Let's talk about that. The Saudi, I don't know, the minister of oil, whatever you want to call him. That's the thing you're talking about, Chris. He basically said he didn't want to spook the markets, essentially, and so he said we're going to keep supply kind of steady because he didn't want it to go too up, too down. Obviously, Saudi is trying to have not get super involved in this. They were almost about to have peace with Israel, and then now this happened over the weekend. So you don't think it's Russia, Ukraine, where raw goods and commodities are going to be so affected via supply chains, given it's in this part of the world and not Ukraine, that it would actually have an effect on the macro that dramatically?
Mm-hmm. Well, even if you want to just test that thesis, even the Russia-Ukraine thing, how long did that last? Like in terms of like prices on natural gas and oil, how long did it really last?
A month?
It wasn't a month. Exactly.
It wasn't even a quarter. It wasn't even really a quarter.
And that's a direct producer that got sanctioned. So imagine right now you've got a tertiary in Iran and Saudi Arabia. Are you going to sanction Iran more? You're already sanctioning the shit out of them. What are you going to do? Say, oh, you can't sell more? No,
they already got $6 billion. So it wasn't like.
I mean, that's a very small amount. That's a very small amount relatively to how much they could possibly make. But Iranian oil is not the end all be all in terms of where oil prices are headed. So.
And I'm thinking oil come down as well. I saw $3.29 in Ohio. It's Texas for raise $2.85. Ohio it's $2.97. So
I will check today. There's this one gas station when I get off the highway as I'm on my way to work. And I somehow always get caught at that red light. And that's just some of the highest prices that I've seen. Over $7 the other day. The picture that you see me posting on X, by the way, if you're not following us, follow us all on X. I post that picture. It's like 720 something. So I'll check and see what it is today and see if it's a little bit lower. But even out here, if it's lower, it's going to be 689 or whatever. I don't know how.
I like that too, actually. Can you guys hit like and subscribe? We have 38 likes and 324 viewers.
Come on, let's get more than 10% of the people.
Okay, this is what's going to get us some likes. Carlos, you can do your
like button.
Okay, I do want to talk about this because I was a bit sad today. Like I saw your post on X when you posted that Palantir's price was pumping. A big part of my bear case for Palantir, and I've said this with VITALY before over a year ago, is why doesn't the stock pump whenever there's a war? If Palantir is supposedly the solution, why isn't Palantir? Why don't we see this reflected in Palantir stock? Now, so my question for you was, is this, I mean, we're now what, 17? We're a few bucks away from their all-time high.
Yeah.
And there's clearly two massive green candles.
No. There wasn't an all-time high. The all-time high for Palantir was once your time frame is small. It's 40.
You're talking about 52-week high. Yeah, 52-week.
Okay, I'm sorry. Right. Yeah. I wasn't zoomed out enough. But anyway, my point is, you being a Palantir, a massive Palantir bull, or just being so knowledgeable about the company, are these green candles attributed to the idea that Israel should have seen this coming, and had they have had software like Palantir, would have been able to see this coming, and people saying, yo, this is part of the bull case for Palantir. And then I have a follow-up question. If that is in fact,
how come Carp didn't release some news that it's coming then?
Well, you would attribute this to, like, why are we pumping when Israel's under attack?
So, I mean, I think a couple of answers. Number one, I think the answer is yes, that the 6% move today at its peak is because of perceived defense intelligence / technology that Israel should have had, given Mossad, which is their version of the CIA, is supposedly 10x better than the CIA. So the fact that they didn't see this coming is insane. And that there was only 3 stocks that were green, right? So I think I have 2 reasons for why this went up today on this.
Cybersecurity stocks in general were up.
Cybersecurity was green. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon were green. Everything was red. Meta was so things got green by like 12 p.m. But at 9:30, what was green was just the defense stocks and cybersecurity. But by the end of the day, the whole market recovered and everything got green. So that was one thing. Number 2, it shouldn't have been up 6% today after being up almost 12% last week. Like, that's a lot, right? To just keep running. So you could argue that maybe it's going to be sold off soon. That's very possible. But the run up today, I think, was purely either retail piling in because they think Palantir is going to get defense contracts from Israel, which might happen, might not happen, or institutions allocating capital to it. But the 6% run up in a day with 2 other defense stocks, I think, is inextricably because the market has a perception of Palantir being needed during this time. I mean, why is Lockheed Martin up 8%? Because you got to order more guns, more weapons. Why is Palantir
the thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Palantir has a disproportionate percentage of its market cap due to retail investors. They're over 50%.
Correct.
I think retail.
Correct.
Okay. So
Correct.
if that's the case, then it's more susceptible to that volatility of retail investors.
Correct.
But if that was the case, then something like Lockheed Martin wouldn't be up, because Lockheed Martin is not 50% or more owned by retail, right?
Right. Lockheed Martin is a more traditional defense stock. And when something bad happens in the world and the market
people look for
the algorithms, essentially, these algorithms are getting really smart. If they can sense like this stock is correlated with this piece of news, and war is a key word that the algorithms use to determine which stocks move up, they're going to buy.
So essentially you've triggered what my follow-up question would be. And this is also part of my conversation about Meta, is like, for your own personal gain, if this is the case? So now for Palantir to get to $40 or $50, if what it's really going to take is a lot of bad news, how comfortable do you feel as an investor investing in this company, knowing that in order for it to get to these market caps, we really need a lot of bad news? This is part of my bear case for Meta. I believe that for Meta to be a $2 trillion company, there is going to be a lot of damage done to the psychology of a younger generation in order for him to capture the amount of attention that he needs in order to monetize them the way that he needs to. It's not going to be good for us overall. It's not going to be good for parents. It's not going to be good for social interactions. It's not. That's my belief. And so for these companies that you're invested in to get where they got to go, if you see it, and especially look, we can argue Meta all day, but if this is actually correlated with Palantir, you see it. You're looking at the videos on your X feed. You're seeing these.
Let me answer. It's a good question.
How do you rectify that?
Yeah, I have two simple answers, and I sleep like a baby at night with the answers I'm about to give you. Number one, I don't think they need World War III to happen to scale in commercial. They're growing commercial 30% year over year, US commercial in particular 67% year over year. So I think commercial is going to be the cherry on top that takes this company to the moon, because I think it's going to be very valuable in commercial. So that's the first thing. Number two, the argument you're making is like, AMIT, people have to die in order for Palantir to make money. I would push back at you if you watched Ben Shapiro's podcast today, where he showed the explicit, things that Hamas was doing. They're not doing that because of Palantir. They're doing that because they're fucking crazy. And if they're doing that because they're fucking crazy, and Palantir could have stopped them from coming into Israel because they would have had better defense intelligence, which they have done many times in Europe in particular in terms of thwarting terrorist attacks, that's a company I will invest in with the most patriotic dollars going into that company. Because therein lies
the conundrum.
There's no conundrum, because you're assuming I need war to make money. I'm assuming war is going to happen because the world hates each other. And there's like Lockheed Martin, for example. I'm not investing them because war is going to happen. I'm investing them because a lot of people hate the Jews and a lot of people hate Muslims, and there's going to be catastrophe because of that. China doesn't like Taiwan. That's not something Lockheed Martin's responsible for. That's like thousands of years of history that is resulted in geopolitical conflicts. So are you saying we shouldn't have a company to make the guns to help Taiwan? No, we should. And if we should, I'll invest in them to help Taiwan. So
what I'm saying is that therein lies the conundrum. Okay. Tesla stock, when Tesla puts out news and says FSD saved 250 crashes, right? Tesla stock does not go up. One person crashes on FSD, Tesla stock goes down. So Palantir saying we've thwarted this many terror attacks, it's not going to move the stock price up, right? But if they fail, that will drive the stock price down. But in events like this, where it's so clear what's happening, and if people are saying that Palantir was the software that could have prevented this, then what you almost have is a case where the companies or countries are incentivized to create these events because that is what drives markets. It's this.
Wait, so you're saying Palantir wants a war to happen?
They don't have to want it.
He's actually saying Karp did this.
That's basically what you're implying, which I think is utterly insane. That's a little bit more ridiculous than the Zuckerberg wants to kill old teenage girls.
I know, exactly.
Didn't say Zuckerberg wants to kill.
I don't know if you went to the gym today.
Amit,
a little bit of a stretch, my guy.
You said that so perfectly. I got to remember that line.
Okay. I didn't say, I don't appreciate you belittling my argument and making me say something I didn't make. Saying something I didn't
Wait,
say.
so what are you saying then? Exactly.
What I'm saying is, specifically with the Palantir case, what I'm saying is, if you see pumps in a stock that you're invested in when there's massively negative news, how do you rectify that? That's all I'm asking.
Because you think
it's nice to see. Look, it's nice to see.
I agree with you. You think the pump in the stock is because Palantir did something bad. I see the pump in the stock is oh my goodness, their software is so necessary to stop shit that's going to happen no matter what, because a lot of people don't like a lot of other people, and that's going to create geopolitical conflict. Maybe I should invest in that company because there's going to be more demand for that as the world becomes more deglobalized. Just like I'd invest in Tesla because ICE vehicles are dying. To me, it's an investment argument. It's not.
So,
really
Carlos, you know, you're taking the higher moral ground. I'd like to put it this way, but if GM and KRIS and all these others start to fail in terms of their adoption, and they start killing people in their cars, which would be bad for them, but Tesla stock is going to pump.
Yeah, how would you rectify that?
Carlos? How would you? This is what you're asking AMIT. You're taking a fake moral high ground where you shouldn't take this.
No,
but anytime we invest in any of these companies,
once again, this is okay. Once again, if we're going to have this debate,
I would appreciate it. I'm just pointing it out.
I'm saying if we're going to have this discussion, I would appreciate that you don't attack me or my personality. I don't know.
I'm actually pointing out exactly.
No, he's not attacking. No one's attacking.
When you say fake morality, what you're saying is I'm putting up a front, or I'm making. You did. Okay,
so here's the question. Carlos, answer the GM question. If you don't have an answer to the GM question, it is fake morality. But if you don't have an answer to that GM scenario VITALY pointed out, it is fake morality. Because if GM has a bunch of car crashes and people die and Tesla goes up, how do you reconcile that?
But you're making a false equivalent, because that's not necessarily what's happening. We saw GM run over. We saw a GM KRIS. We saw a GM KRIS like run over a person, and it didn't pump Tesla stock.
What if it did? Is my point.
If it did, then it did. But it did.
What if GM fails and all those people get unemployed and now they don't have a job and Tesla pumps?
Well, I mean, that's already happening with the UAW.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as GM starts failing, even if it kills people or not, Tesla's going to go up. That's what's going to happen, because the competition is not coming.
All right. We can move on. I feel like I need to. Okay.
I just mean, look, we can't invest in anything because there's always a negative to the other side. So you're choosing a line. That's what I should have said. You're picking a line. That's fine. AMIT picked another line. We all get to pick our line because we're capitalists here at the end of the day.
Okay, right. But that's what you always go back to. It's like, well, there's always going to be negative, and we're capitalists at the end of the day, so fuck it.
Okay, maybe not a capitalist.
I feel like you're not hearing me, and you're putting words in my mouth, so we can just move on.
Oh, no, we can keep it going because it's an important discussion. I just don't understand how Palantir is responsible for bad things happening, and I should feel guilty if I invested in them.
The original point of my question was, part of my bear case with Palantir is if war is good for them, the stock should be pumping when there's problems in the world. We saw, I mean, it wasn't just this. I mean, you saw the issues that were happening in Ukraine for months. And it was like, and Palantir was there. You saw him with Zelensky. And I'm like, why is the stock not moving? But then when you see an event like this, and I saw a lot of calls on Twitter or on X of people saying, this is why you need Palantir. Like, people were posting these videos and putting hashtag Palantir. Now, again, I don't know if this is a result of retail versus institution, because at the end of the day, what really matters is the institutions, because the retail investors are not going to get Palantir to all-time highs. It's going to be institutions that get it back to all-time highs when they make it a massive part, or they take a certain stake in it. So that's my question. So my question comes down to, how do you feel as an investor if you see a stock that you're invested in up on a positive on such horrible news, and feeling like that's what we're going to need to achieve the market caps that we need?
Because I don't think we need to have a war every year for Palantir to go up. I think will it go up if there's a war? Yeah. Does that mean I want a war? No. And I don't think any investor wants people being raped and killed by terrorists in order for their stock to go up. However, I am accepting the inevitability that there are really bad people in the world that will do that shit. And if I could invest in a company that stops that from happening, and the market sees a war as an opportunity to have increased demand, just like Lockheed Martin went up because of increased demand, I will happily invest in that company. I don't believe we need a World War III for Palantir to be a $250 stock one day. I think they need to win commercial. And that will take a long time. I may be wrong in the next decade. Maybe they don't win it. But if they do win commercial and have AI throughout the entire enterprise, then I think it'll be a great investment. Well, but no, the government is a cherry on top.
Yeah, and you did, and you partially answered that when you said that you also expect to see growth in the commercial space. And I've seen you post plenty of times about these healthcare contracts that they're looking to get over.
Yeah, but I just they might have gotten it. I lose zero sleep as a Palantir investor, because my logic is that bad shit happens. Their software can help, not the reason for bad shit happening, therefore they can sell their software. I think that's ridiculous. And so,
no, but but again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Palantir is responsible for this. I'm not saying they're actively going out and like Palantir doesn't make bombs, right? You could say that about a bomb maker. If I'm making bombs or guns, you need people, you need bad things to happen because you need people to purchase these products. That's not what Palantir is doing. And I'm not saying that if you're taking it that way, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, just like with nuclear weapons, we made them for deterrence. Are they bad things? Yes. But you needed companies to make them, and we have a lot more peace in the world because of those nuclear weapons, one could argue. There's a bear case, right? So I just don't see the moral conundrum with investing in them. I see them as like a savior for a lot of the bad stuff that's happening.
Yeah, I think, look, first of all, Carlos, I think we all get a right to choose which investments we make and where we draw the line. But all these companies are neither really bad or really good. So like we can pick Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin probably has done a lot to secure our safety. Like we don't think of it that way, but they've probably done a lot of that too, as well as murder innocent people all across the world. So I don't think it's all good and bad. And you can't just say, I'm not buying this or not buying that. I think we have to choose, pick our own lines. And that's the best thing.
And that's what makes a market. Because if Carlos is not going to buy Meta, someone else will. And if enough people agree with Carlos, Meta stock will go down, right? That's what makes a market.
Yep.
A lot of people don't agree with the Palantir thesis. Therefore, they don't buy it. That's why the stock's stuck at 16, 17, right?
And Chris,
all right,
Chris, you got something for this?
Yeah, Chris, do you have any comments on this? And then we'll move on.
I think Palantir setting itself up for failure for earnings because the expectations are going to be much higher now. So, right now everyone's like, oh my God, Palantir, defense, they're going to do really well. If those contracts don't materialize, it's not good. So we'll see. If earnings comes out, their revenue growth is shoddy, they'll take a big beating in earnings. So, you always want to stay one step ahead of these guys, where if market conditions are kind of a little bit too high on the expectations on the front end, means that you might get a sell-off on the back end. And that's probably why Arnie today, I was looking at his portfolio, he was selling off Palantir. He's been systematic with it.
I was thinking about it too, because of the fact that it's predominantly retail.
Yeah,
no, I think a lot of people might be taking profits right now. Arnie, he's another Palantir guy in the community. I think a lot of people are taking profits right now, and I can't blame them because if you had an average of $10, I mean,
he didn't sell. By the way, he didn't sell his entire position. He was adding in the 14s, but when it got to like the high 16s and the 17s, he took a little bit money off the top. So that's one of the great things about investors like Arnie, which is that they're very fundamental driven, where they do believe in companies, but they know what the valuations are and what they should be. And then based on that, they do a lot of risk mitigation. So right now it's taking a little bit of money off the top is not a bad idea. You have a company right now that's worth almost $40 billion with $2 billion in revenue, barely generating any income, So the key is going to be around Palantir's future revenue growth, with all the stuff that's happening right now with Russia, Ukraine, and government contracts are typically delayed, usually going into the future. How are they going to end up monetizing this? So it's one thing to say you're the best X, Y, and Z, you could have prevented a terrorist attack and blah, blah, blah. But if no one buys your shit, then all you're really doing is talking into a mic and no one's really listening. So I feel like that a lot with Palantir, where they say a lot of shit. Their presentations looks amazing. Like, oh my God, this is like the next generation X, Y, and Z. But then when you fundamentally look at how much money is coming in as revenue, it's not there. So, too much hype. Not a good thing. Yeah.
Unity CEO resigned. VITALY, are you back in? What's going on?
So yeah, everybody's tweeting me that, of course. And that was great news because we've been talking about on multiple podcasts that we were waiting for John Riticello, the CEO who wanted to charge people for bullets in his last company. And now he wanted to charge gamers per install. That when he goes away, he fixes a major problem with Unity, because it's not the technology, it's this guy and this management team. So I'm going to do more research in terms of the new guy who's taken over. I did a little bit. I forgot his name, Whitefield or Whitfield or something. And he knows John a long time, so I don't know how much of John has rubbed off on on this new guy. So I do want to do more research, but I still have half my position. And if they turn the ship around, yes, I want a lot of Unity stock. I think Unity can be an absolutely massive beast in the next decade as well. It's one of those long-term investments which I want to ignore. And John was the only one who made me pay attention to it, that asshole. The only reason I sold anything is because of that fucking shitty CEO.
So let me give you guys some background on Jim Whitehurst, because I did a lot of research on the guy.
Awesome. Real quick, let me give a shout out to 400, which I think is the first time on the channel since Jeremy. So shout out to 400 people. and it goes to 397 as soon as I ring the bell. But
so, by the way, before you start, that was fast.
52.
In terms of how fast he was ousted, it was like within a month of this scandal.
That's a good board of directors. Board of directors, they're supposed to do shit like this.
I have a theory because I think we've seen this more than one. I feel like when a company wants to try something that is a bit risky, you get a new CEO, you have them come in, try it out. If markets don't like it, then the board of directors will oust that guy and basically have him be the fall guy, give him a bunch of money, and then bring in somebody else.
He's not the new CEO. He's been there like 7-10 years.
What I'm saying is, like, I feel like this guy who they just got rid of, they just brought him in, he fucked everything up, and then they get rid of him. It's a way of testing something out. If markets don't like it, you can blame this guy, get rid of him, and then install somebody else. So you can test something without really having to feel the repercussions. It also represents a buying opportunity where the stock will tank on that such news. You say, look, we're going to try something out. If the stock's going to tank, then okay, stock's going to tank. We're all going to buy back in. We're going to say, oh, it wasn't us. It was this guy. We're going to clean house, off to the races again. And you can just basically hit the undo button and get a chance to buy it. Like, for investors in Unity, what was the downside? Zero. No downside.
Well, there's been a lot of downside in Unity recently.
Well, some of the developers that left and now are using like Unreal Engine, whatever, but they'll come back.
Yeah. I'm not actually worried about it. In fact, they fixed. We hit a podcast. What's his name? Trevor? What's his name?
Tevis.
You don't remember his name? That's our
guy. Name, sorry.
Wow.
So we had a podcast.
1 night stand.
I only fucked him once. So we had a podcast.
Now he's got an STD. That's why he had a colonoscopy.
Who has the STD?
Yo, real quick, put in the chat what's the best acronym for STD, but make it a stock relating term.
STP.
So STD, but like put stock related words for STD.
Well, let me at least say this. All right. So me and Tevis talked about it, and the fact that our only case against Unity is not, once again, the technology is good. The CEO is a piece of shit, but they fixed a lot of the things as soon as they came out to the public and told them what they're changing. So I have no more reasons besides the CEO, and now he's gone. So I'm going to be seriously looking back into it. And Chris, I think you want to tell us about the new CEO at least.
Yeah. So James Whitehurst was the CEO at Red Hat. He joined in about 2009, I think, and then later sold Red Hat to IBM for a massive, massive profit. I'm talking about massive. This guy is a smooth operator. He knows how to run organizations, especially in the software space. Highly recommend this guy. If IBM could have kept him forever, because he was kept on at IBM for a while they were doing the integration work, but he eventually left to start a new venture. Let me tell you, getting a guy like him, he may be interim right now, and they're all doing a search, but dude, I think he ends up becoming the CEO like permanent, because that's typically what happens. They say that they're going to look for an interim person and blah blah blah, but if they end up
another smart
somehow
board, though, you say he's interim. So if you don't like what he's doing, you say we're looking for. It's such a smart move strategically. You got to play that. You got to be strategic with it.
I would say I will definitely take a second look at Unity. I wasn't, with the current leadership and everything you guys said, it wasn't really appealing to me. But if they end up hiring James Whitehurst, the guy's a rock star. You need a rock star CEO to come in and clean up a lot of the mess. There's a lot of issues with developers. James Whitehurst has a lot of great relationships from his time at Red Hat. So let's see what happens. But I'd like to see what the turnaround plan is for that James comes out with. And basically go from there. But I could tell you right now, in terms of like smooth operators, you want just someone like James Whitehurst. Like, this is not a guy that they pulled off the street with little to no management experience. The guy he's wealthy beyond the point where he needs to do this as a way to make money. His thing right now is just cementing a legacy. So I would say, listen, do your research on James Whitehurst. The fact that the board of directors was able to convince this guy to get on board means two things, in my opinion. Number one, they probably enticed him with a lot of like legacy value. But number two is that James Whitehurst probably saw potential in Unity for it to be a much bigger company than what it is. A lot of times people look at, oh, well, what did they do to interview this guy to get in? No, with guys like James Whitehurst and his caliber, he's interviewing the company. It's not the other way around. And the fact that he said yes is a very big sign for positivity.
But he was already working there. So
he wasn't working there.
I thought he was already working there. No?
Look it up. I don't think so.
All right.
No.
I could be wrong.
By the way, shout out to Kevin for the $50 super chat. Thank you for that, bro. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, hit the like button, everybody. Thank you, Kevin.
Another button that you can hit. I mean, hitting that like for that is $50. It's like, damn.
Thank you for Heinzie Ketchup. That's $5 as well. These guys create content for our leisure. Also wishing everyone good health. Thank you for that, Heinzie. Really appreciate it.
All right, I have a question for the group. So,
okay.
I don't
put
know.
A link. Are we putting a link or no? We're not doing that.
No, because we're about to be done in like 20 minutes. So should
we
put a link?
Put a link.
Right, we'll put a link.
See if somebody. I mean, Kevin.
Anyone wants to join? Putting a link.
Why don't you come on and say, hey? I mean, Jesus Christ, give him the mic for 5 minutes. Let him pump a stock. My question is, outside of like a massive event, I kind of feel like we are closer to a bottom than we are a top. And so I've been starting to release some of the funds, and I've been starting a DCA. I've been trying to double, if not triple, my Novix position. Still have the daily Bitcoin stuff. I'm going into Palantir. I mean, not Palantir, PayPal. Like,
oh, he admitted it. He admitted it, everybody.
I wouldn't buy.
You're up 100% on those shares.
I'm up. Yeah, and that's a question for you. Should I sell?
He paid off his house.
Should I pay off my? I could pay off a doorknob in my house.
VITALY would almost be breaking even on Palantir if he kept it.
Should I? Okay, everybody, I want to get Mick on the record. Should I sell right now at $17?
That's up to you, man.
How much? Would
I'm
you
up
make?
100%.
How many dollars? You had 100 shares, right?
105 shares. Should I sell and
you make like $1,000 basically?
About $1,000, yeah, whatever it was at the time. I think it was like.
Well, let me ask you this. If would you rather have more Enphase or Enovix or Tesla, or would you rather have Palantir? That's the question you got to ask yourself, right?
Well, what do you think, Amit? Should I? I'm asking you for financial advice.
I mean, I think you should hold it for 2030. I think it'll be worth more in 2030. But if you want more,
worth 1,050.
Do you think? You said earlier we might see a pullback. Do you think we'll see a pullback? Do you think that should?
Look, man, the RSI is at 81. I mean, it's
pumping. It's pumping.
I'm looking at it right now.
I'm looking at it right now. It's flying. There's a little rocket ship on top of that RSI.
But I want you to hold it just so you're part of the crew till 2030. Like, you gotta,
okay. How about I make you a deal? If I sell it out, I would only use it to buy more Palantir.
What?
But then Palantir would have to dip below $9, which is your average.
No, it doesn't have to dip below $9 because I made 100% on it, so I could buy it.
At so you would take the
10, 12, or 13.
You put 1,000 into Enphase and then the rest in Palantir. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm just saying.
If you want to, yeah.
No. If I want to, I'm asking you. What do you think?
I think you should. You should go to a cost basis of $9.
If I can't get solid advice, Palantir advice, I'm not asking you about Tesla. I'm asking you about Palantir.
I would say hold it so in 2030 you can be like, I bought it at $9, and when it's like 4,000 a share,
I'm gonna sell.
I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding.
Get him a camera. Can you sell it? You buy him a camera.
Buy a camera. Seriously. Seriously.
All right. How about we bring up a guest who will help answer your question and this macro bottom question?
There we go.
Boy,
yes. What are we buying, guys? This is the time to buy. What have we been buying?
I'll tell you what we need to buy. Amit needs to get a new camera because the one he fucking keeps using keeps dying, dude. It can't last one episode, dude. It doesn't last one episode, yet he sticks with it.
He is not a pro.
I'm telling you, he does the 4K. He keeps doing the fucking 4K, dude. I'm telling him, use the 180 and it won't die. Jeez, man.
He doesn't know any of those settings, man.
Go into there and fix the settings and all that. Because I record regular videos for my YouTube channel. I need 4K for that. So I don't want to go back and forth, switch the 4K, switch the 1080, So I just let it go.
Yo, ring the bell, please. Ring the bell, buddy.
Why ring the bell?
Someone's logging off. Let him log off. Ring the bell.
Logging off if you ring the bell. Okay,
ring the bell.
We're not gonna annoy you right now. Crossroads, are you buying or what are you buying, and do you think the market's at a bottom right now?
Most recently, I bought more SoFi, and I was thinking about coming on tonight anyway, just because of the way that the market has reacted to. Previously, as good news was bad news was good news, and the war is not good news. But don't get me wrong. But everybody, including myself, was thinking, okay, yeah, if we had a pick, the stocks are going to go down today, and they started that way, except for defense stocks. And you guys talked about Palantir, covered it well. Carlos, maybe sell half if you'd like to, but keep some, man. You gotta be the carpless. So do what you want, but
I'm just saying, I can take my initial investment out right now. I can sell it and just take out my grand, let the rest of it ride, maybe buy back in, maybe move some to Enphase, maybe move some to SoFi. I really think this is the time. I don't know if anyone's waiting for the actual bottom, but by the time you realize that was the bottom, it's gone up 10% from where it is now. I think this is the time, for at least for me. I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm saying this for me.
Not anywhere close to me. And actually, I bought a couple more shares of that. Bought some SoFi, been buying PayPal. But yeah, the stock market has seemed to like the jobs report is really what threw me. And Tom Lee, you know, with this fantastic prediction of what would happen, like that jobs report, typically the reaction would be like the stock market just tanks, and it did. And then it was like, you know, let's actually go up. This is not bad. And do you guys think that that was because of those being like second jobs or part-time jobs, or are we at the point now?
What? I asked Jesse about that because he's got really good jobs report data, and that's what I want to know. When you say unemployment's low, how many of those jobs are being held by the same fucking person? If it's a single mom working 3 jobs, that's not a good sign for the economy. And I can't seem to find that data. So I take the jobs reports with a grain of salt. Yeah,
it shocked me the way that it did. So I think between that and did we officially hit a correction, or were we at like 9.9%? Are we like good enough as far as the 10%? But
no, we did hit we went to 419, so we hit the 10%.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it just seems like we're near there, like with seasonality and everything. Like I'm not a macro guy. I'm just, that's not my thing. But I'm learning a little bit more from everybody, including Jesse and you guys as well. But yeah, it feels like we're bottom-ish, barring some major catalyst down, and maybe that's CPI. You know, if CPI comes in real hot. But I like, for me, CPI comes out this Wednesday. Is that right?
Yeah. This Wednesday, yeah.
If it comes out and it's okay-ish, and the market goes up a good bit on that day, I mean, first, you know, that's just one data point. You can't really assume anything from that. 2, it may or may not be a trend, but 3 in a row with the hot jobs report, with the reaction to the war, and it goes up anyway, and then the CPI. Like, for me, that signals that it's a trend and that we're going back.
Meaning the market keeps getting good news and it's actually going up on the news. So you're saying that's important.
It goes up on good news, shrugs off bad news, and it's going to go up. Tom Lee is right.
Yeah, if you take a look at the SPY, it's behaving pretty well in terms of this channel. It's bouncing off its support here, so we'll see what happens. But it's not looking terribly negative right now.
Yeah, I like. There's always negative things that can happen, but I think it's just the climbing the wall of worry, and that was something that somebody had mentioned, you know, a while ago. There's always things, like looking back at previous bull market cycles. There's always things that people worry about, and then you just like completely forget because it's like it was in the news for a cycle for maybe 2 weeks. And I'm not saying the war is that. The war is just awful. It's tragic. You guys did a good job talking about that. But there's always going to be things to worry about, and it just seems like for the market at this point, it just doesn't seem to care. And I think the CPI will be confirmation of that, but I don't know.
Chris, what is your take on a hot jobs report helping the market? And do you think the market is finally shrugging off bad news and good news is actually good news?
I mean, it wasn't that great of news. I mean, the number of full-time jobs dropped, the number of part-time jobs jumped. They had to do seasonal adjusting to it. A lot of the jobs were in hotel and leisure rather than higher paying. I mean, you look at the key to this was looking at the wage inflation, which wasn't that bad. That's the key. So I think a lot of times people are, you know, automatically assuming just from the hot number, like the total number, that they should base their investment decisions on that. But if you really look down on the wage inflation, that's calming down a lot. So a lot of people who were more patient with it ended up realizing that, hey, wait a second, we're actually starting to see a lot of deflation happening. So, you know, I think we're headed into a much more of a deflationary scenario going forward than we are than people really realize. And so a lot of people are positioning defensively that way. So a lot of companies right now that are impacted by credit, they were up today as well. So, you know, just food for thought. I think, yeah, I just think that the inflation narrative higher for longer is starting to kind of like take a sidestep. And so the opportunities in this market are to pick up things that, you know, will be able to benefit from that trend next year and the year after that.
You know, also in 9 days, the 18th, 9 days, Tesla has their earnings. And then the following week, we have GM and Ford. And
Tesla's been resilient the past couple of weeks.
Well, the reason why is very simple.
This could be the run up before the sell-off, because they're not going to hit. They missed the deliveries, but missed. They guided for less deliveries. They actually did have less production, less deliveries. But now we're going to see what the impact was on the earnings. But then a week or so later, we get to see what the impact is of the strikes. So I think that's going to spook markets a little bit. So we might have a shitty fucking November, and then maybe we get a couple of good earnings.
I think we have strong earnings, man. I mean, when you have inflation rising, that also means that a lot of businesses are going to have more pricing power. So you're going to see earnings climb for a lot of companies. Like, there's two things. If you look just 1 year back, you had the price of inputs go up, and so in order to mitigate those margins, businesses rose prices uniquely at the same time. So basically now their profit margins are, relatively healthy consumer. They're able to support the prices. Everything is okay. What happened after that is the input costs went down significantly, yet the prices to which the businesses were charging are all staying the same. They didn't discount anything. You look at the price of lithium right now. Go ahead, look at the price of lithium and see what it is. So in terms of like margins, as long as you didn't have like fixed contracts that where input costs were paid at high prices for a long time, your business is going to do, pretty well. So right now what's happening is input costs are coming down. Businesses are not giving consumers the discount because the consumer is still strong. And yeah, I think a lot of the corporate earnings are going to be really positive and to the upside. So
yeah, when we had the previous quarter, everything had just roared and earnings wasn't able to sustain that. Like even phenomenal earnings like NVIDIA, it went up and then just came right back down. And I mean, you don't get much better earnings than what they had. So this time around, we've been, down. We've been, some sockets have been flat depending on what it is. I don't see the hype, the excitement going to earnings season. Like you almost have to search to realize that earnings is happening at the end of this week with some of the companies. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah,
I think it'll be good.
Here, take a look at this. This right here is the price of lithium carbonate, right? Look at the price of lithium carbonate right now. It's literally trading at the lows we had earlier in April. But look at where it is compared to where it was in November of last year. So a lot of the discounting that's being done by Tesla, they're being more than offset by the lithium prices going down. So yes, in terms of margin improvement, maybe Tesla won't be there, but that also means that like whatever price declines that you saw in Tesla, what they're charging less, will probably be mitigated, which means that you'll get a higher sales volume at the same time. So we'll see what happens.
This is what they've said quarter over quarter, is that we lower the prices of our vehicles to match lowering the input costs, but that's never that never gets out of the earnings call. You never hear that on the mainstream media. It's never really reported. And
you want more adoption. You want more adoption because at the end of the day, just look at Apple right now. Apple makes so much money on services revenue, right? They're growing their business because they're growing that services revenue like crazy. Imagine right now with Tesla. Tesla's growing its services revenue with all the superchargers, with all the servicing that they have to do.
If you want premium connectivity like real-time traffic, or if you want to use your Spotify account, that's $10 a month, right? That you have every vehicle on the road. And
there you go. So the more vehicles on the road means more profit for Tesla, and it's all high margin profit. It's repeatable high margin profit. So
and speaking of which, it'll be the last thing is I went to go trade in this phone. I was all jealous of AMIT's iPhone 15, so I went. I was like, let me go to the Apple store and see what they'll offer me. There he is, dude. You got to be that for Halloween. You got to be that for Halloween,
dude. I was thinking of being Joker or Carp for Halloween.
But you should be a Carp. You should be.
What happened to Justin Bieber? I got to look at that guy.
You got to be a Carp
Justin
Joker.
Bieber back.
With like Carp's
Why
hair.
do you guys think it's gay, bro? It's not gay to have a man as your background. How is that gay, bro?
First of all, it's 2023. It's nothing wrong with being gay.
It's nothing.
Okay, nothing wrong with being gay.
So, by the way, I mean, if you're gay, it's okay, bro.
It's okay,
we'll
dude.
Friends.
Yeah, Vitaly, like 10 years ago, that would have been bad, but I can't say that today. So I'll say the other thing.
I get the crush on Alex Carp. I'm just saying, like Justin Bieber, no, but yeah, Carp.
Anyway, so listen, I went to trade in this. Like I said, what can we do? I want to get 2 of these phones. I had this deal that was buy one get one free as long as I made all the payments. Blah blah blah. Ended up paying, what was it, $11.50. They were like, the price of the phones are $11.50, but you'll get one of them for free. So I went in. They'll take this phone and trade it in for the new one, the iPhone 15, and they'll only cost me $500 each. So I'm literally getting a brand new phone, 2 years better with USB-C at half the price because it would still be buy one, get one free, right? Of course, I'm trading in this thing, but I don't need it anyway. So to your point, yeah, Chris, they're giving me the freaking phone because they got a 3-year contract at unlimited data.
Yeah.
I think me and Amit a long time ago on the Cowbell when we had episodes. Okay, remember Amit? I said one day Apple will be giving away phones for free.
Yes, you did.
And
you
all
did.
they're going to do is charge for services because that's the only way. That's the only thing that matters at the end of the day.
Well, same with Tesla. I mean, they're not giving the cars away for free.
But it's the same model where eventually everyone is going to have a phone. So the way we get your money is through services. It has.
But the other thing is, look, a phone and a car, for the most part, is something you only buy one of, right? I only have one car. So when I buy that one car, everybody else doesn't get my sale. I think it's another smart move when these companies are bleeding money to take that sale from GM, take that sale from, even though they're losing money on the vehicles, it's going to force them to have to raise their prices even more on the little inventory that they are moving. So, but short term, if they don't hit, if the markets don't see a number that they like on any Tesla earnings report, it gets punished. Although we didn't see that for production. So I'm very curious to see what'll happen.
I agree with Test Cap. Can you bring it up? I think this channel could do better if you finally just came out.
I don't get how a guy in your background, bro. My dad saw it the other day. He was like, "Who the fuck is that?" I was like, "Dad, it's like
yeah, your dad is like, what? Oh no, my son is
that's a sugar daddy."
Every fuck is that?
Yeah, every dad wants to see a man on his son's cell phone, right? It's like, oh,
older
man, older man. That's another thing, an older dude as well, man.
Bro, I wake up every morning and I just see it. I'm like, oh yeah, there's carp, and then I move on with my day.
Oh man, that's funny.
Okay, I got to say, if you don't mind, real quick on the Tesla stuff. I work in education, and I train people usually just one-on-one for like a week or two. And the last 3 people that I've had, like, we inevitably start talking about cars, and I'm like, hey, I'm interested in getting a Tesla. They have no idea how cheap they are with the incentives. And so I think over the last 2 months, and I'm not joking, I know for sure there's one, but I think that I've sold 3 Teslas in the last 2 months. No commission. It's like, come on. But no, yeah. They're going to, I mean, it's just, I'm excited about the company. It's going to be great.
Stephen Mark Ryan did a video yesterday about how much free advertising they're getting, because every time they lower the prices, all these mainstream media networks do an entire segment on Tesla where they show what the price was and how it's come down. And the narrative is starting to change, where some of the pundits are not saying it's like a sign of increased of demand. They're calling it out as a way of making the cars more affordable. So they constantly are saying affordable, affordable, affordable. You're seeing Model 3s, you're seeing the price it was, you're seeing it come down, and they're trying to get all of their vehicles and all of the trims. So now the performance models of the Model Y now qualifies for a tax rebate, and those vehicles in general have higher margins than the standard ones. So it's free advertising. It really is free advertising, because they had 10-minute segments on 4 or 5 of these mainstream media channels at the peak, during peak watch hours. That's better than buying a commercial. I'm sorry. It's way better than buying a commercial. So I don't know if that was their intention, but if it was, that's a real high IQ move by the Tesla team.
Yeah, but just remember, as a headwind, the same subsidies and incentives, they apply to all the other manufacturers. Granted, 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, the alternatives weren't there. But dude, the alternatives right now are actually really good. So,
look, I'll give you a little secret. We're actually looking to get another car. So I've been on the market. I've been looking at some other vehicles for my wife, right? And so I was like, let me look at all the options. So I went the other night and I looked at every EV offering of all the vehicles that would compare to a Model 3. And we had a Nissan Leaf before that. So I was like, let me look at the brand new Nissan Leaf. When you actually sit and compare spec to spec, it really is a no-brainer, even with the incentives, that the Tesla is still by far better. When you look at the interior of these vehicles, when you look at the range, when you look at the warranty plans of like the Nissan Leaf, or you look at the Kona, or you look at the VWs, and you really compare vehicles to each other, on every metric that I've looked at, the Tesla still comes out better. And even if it's a little bit more expensive, I go, I would have to get a Tesla. I was really open to having a third vehicle that wasn't a Tesla. And at the end of the day, now we're looking at a Model 3.
But the advertising actually might make sense, because my parents are thinking of getting a new car, and we had the Tesla conversation yesterday, for like 10, 15 minutes, not super long. And my mom was like, oh, but it's going to run out of range. Like, she had the range anxiety. And I didn't have time to educate her about all the stuff.
How long do electrons actually last? They don't last that long.
Because she had an experience with a friend who got in a car and it lost battery. So like those experiences, maybe the advertising fixes it.
But here's the deal. No, but here's the deal. If you go and talk to your mom right now, if you have real range anxiety, then you're going to say to your mom's going to want to know, if I get stuck out on the road, where am I going to charge this thing? You either have a Tesla supercharging network, or you have a maybe an Electrify America.
Look, it's
or
called AAA. If you get AAA, they will come out and actually give you a
go
boost.
charge your car. Right, but my point is, if you have
to the charging station,
if you have a Tesla, the Tesla will warn you when you're getting out of range of a nearby supercharger. It'll say you are almost too far from the nearest supercharger. Charge now, and then you know that when you get to the charger, it's going to be reliable. You're going to plug in and it's going to charge your vehicle. If you have range anxiety, the Tesla is the only one that you can.
No, I agree. Yeah,
there is no real option. Are we ending the podcast? Because
okay, so if you guys got to leave, you can leave. I have one question that I got to ask because
before I leave, I want to admit that I also have a dude on my phone. It's cool.
Is it your son? Oh, wow.
It's cool. We all have dudes on our phones. It's
both of these guys gonna make us.
I have a dude on my phone too.
That's true.
He has himself.
I got myself.
He masturbates to himself.
I have my wife, man. So no, I'm the only one with a girl on my phone. The rest of y'all have dudes, and Carlos has
at night. I'm like, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
I'll tell you why. And I tell my wife the same thing. Call me paranoid. I don't want to have, my phone ever gets freaking stolen, I don't want anyone to see what my wife looks like or my kid. I don't want them to know what she looks like. So as much as I'd love to put my kid front and center on the phone, maybe on the home screen, but not the lock screen, bro.
My phone gets stolen. They should be like, who's this guy? Look him up. Be like, oh, Palantir, and I hope they just get into the company and they learn.
Like, why is the phone Why is the phone so sticky?
Look, we gotta keep that.
All right, anyway, like poop. That was funny. What was the last thing?
Okay, so this might be a longer discussion. So if you guys gotta leave, you guys gotta leave. But what the hell is this thing, bro? What is this thing? What is TLT? I don't understand it. I don't get it. Everyone on Twitter is talking about it. It has something to do with bonds. It's down so much, but people keep investing in it. So I'm really confused. Why is this thing a thing?
That's a KRIS question. I'm sure.
TLT is a index for 20-year plus treasuries, just like it says up there, right? So this moves inversely with interest rates. So what typically happens with bonds is interest rates go up, fixed long-term debt, the asset price goes down. So if you go scroll down, you're going to see the yield. Well, you have to look
like 3%, 3.5% on Robinhood.
Yeah. So basically what happens is bond prices are inversely related to short-term interest rates. So short-term interest rates, if you can get a 5% interest rate, that means that the long bond yield is going to, the value of it is going to go down.
So if interest rates go to 5% or like 6%, whatever, this 86 should go up is what you're saying.
No. Down the opposite direction. Yeah.
So why it
works in reverse. So if interest rates get cut, what ends up happening is the asset price itself goes up. So if you go scroll to 1 year, right? Go to the 1 year mark. What you saw was as the Federal Reserve started to raise interest rates, the long bond ended up becoming less valuable, but the yield spike. So what happens is right now, the yield on this would be almost 4% right now. Look it up. It's not 3 point something. What is it? It's like 4 point something.
Let me check.
So if you think about it, the Federal Reserve, because of the U.S. Treasury, is risk-free and it's tax-free.
4.83.
Yeah. So 4.83% risk-free, because this is not technically AAA rated anymore, but it's like AA rated by 2 agencies, and 1 agency is still AAA rated. So why would you want to risk the market and buy companies like X, Y, and Z who pay a dividend close to 6%, where you could get almost like a 5 point something percent return?
No, but let's say I buy this
treasuries,
let's say I buy this at 86, I get 4.8%. But what would cause?
And it pays monthly. It pays monthly, by the way.
Wait, 4%. Okay, but what caused this to go to 83 and for me to be down?
Because the asset price itself, the bond price goes down. As interest rates, you raise the short interest rates, the bond prices are going to go down, because the way that it works, that these are issued bonds already. So you understand.
But I want it to go to 83 then, because that means the rest of my portfolio will be doing well, correct?
What do you mean? No.
So if I buy to 86, I get the 4%, and then interest rates get cut. If interest rates raise, it goes to 83 or 82 or whatever.
Yeah, because it's going to keep going down to match that yield. On the other end, if let's say interest rates were to go down, the underlying assets, because now those underlying assets are still yielding that 5% return, are going to be worth more. So it's going to go in the opposite direction. So right now, there's a lot of people piling into this trade because there's this something called a basis trade, which is very, very technical, but I'll give you guys the gist of it. The way that it works is a lot of like pension funds and foundations and stuff, they need a certain guaranteed rate of return in order to maintain operations. They're usually long-term buyers. Insurance companies, they're long-term buyers. They buy treasuries for a long time and they just hold on to them. They get a lot of money, just collecting every year just based on that. Now, hedge funds, what they do is they'll buy these treasuries and immediately short them. And it's weird how they make money on the spread by shorting them, because what happens is not necessarily, I am using the wrong word. They don't short it. What they do is they sell futures contracts against it, which is almost like a short position. So what happens is if the price of the bond goes up, they just use those bonds to pay the foundations and insurance companies those futures contracts, and the money that they use to borrow it, they borrow short using overnight repo. What ends up happening now is that you make money on the spread by borrowing short, technically lending long, and making money on the spread. It's really technical, but it's an arbitrage opportunity for a lot of hedge funds. And so everyone right now is super long on treasuries.
So people, if they're bullish that interest rates will get cut, that's why they're piling into TLT. That's your point.
Yeah, because everyone sees the recession. The recession indicator is up there. So everyone's like, oh, if we have a recession, the Federal Reserve is going to cut. And if the Federal Reserve cuts, then these treasuries are going to go up, right? And on top of it, you have a fixed return. You have a nice guaranteed return without having to do anything, and it's tax efficient. So,
that makes sense.
All right, cool. All right.
Hopefully that clears it up for a lot of people. Thank you guys for joining Crossroads, our good friend of the show. I'm putting his Twitter in the chat. Make sure you follow him on Twitter if you're interested in PayPal. This guy has years of PayPal due diligence, and if he's right, he's going to make you a lot of fucking money on PayPal. So make sure you follow him on Twitter.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice, though. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Night.